Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Today you are going to discover a key of F major harmonic workout, and you are going to learn how to think within the key of F major harmonically. And you're going to play block chords, traditional and contemporary shells, two-handed voicings using common harmonic motion and this is a big and, with various fundamental rhythmic comping patterns. So as I always like to say, regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you've been around the block a few times and you consider yourself a seasoned and experienced professional, you will find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast, this lesson, exploring a key of F major harmonic workout to be very beneficial. If you are new to Jazz Piano Skills, if you are a new Jazz Piano Skills podcast listener, I want to personally invite you, as I do at the beginning of every podcast episode, I personally want to invite you to become a Jazz Piano Skills member. Visit JazzPianoSkills.com to learn more about all of the jazz educational resources and the materials and the services that are there waiting for you that you can use to help you on your journey to becoming an accomplished jazz pianist. For example, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have access to all of the educational podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs. These are educational tools that I develop and produce for every weekly podcast episode. These are invaluable educational resources that you want to have at your fingertips when listening to this podcast, but you also want to have sitting on your piano as you're actually practicing these jazz piano skills. Also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have access to the sequential jazz piano curriculum, which is loaded with comprehensive courses, all of them using a self-paced format. There are educational talks to enjoy, interactive media, video demonstrations in all 12 keys of the jazz piano skills being taught, and play-along files, and much, much more. So check out the sequential jazz piano curriculum. As a Jazz Piano Skills member, you also have a reserved seat in the weekly online master classes. These are, in essence, 1-hour lessons with me each and every week. And you also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the private Jazz Piano Skills community, which hosts a variety of engaging forums, podcast-specific forums and course-specific forums, and just general jazz piano forums as well. All of those forums are there for you to engage in and enjoy each and every day. And last but certainly not least, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have unlimited private, personal, and professional educational support from me whenever and as often as you need it. So again, visit JazzPianoSkills.com to learn more about all of the educational opportunities that await you and how you can easily activate your membership. There are several membership plans to choose from. I'm confident there is one that's perfect for you. Once you look them over, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Let me know. I'm always happy to spend some time with you, answer any questions that you may have, and help you in any way that I can. So, okay, let's discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Let's get after this key of F major harmonic workout. Back on January 4th, we kicked off the new year with a key of C major harmonic workout that explored each of the 7 chords of the key of C using various voicings. We played each chord within the key of C, C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, and B half diminished. We played each of those chords using standard block shapes, root position, first, second, and third inversions. We used traditional 3-note shells, the 3-7-9 and 7-3-5 voicings. We also utilize the contemporary chordal or fourthy voicings. And we also tackled the two-handed 5-note voicings, 2 in the left, 3 in the right, that I use all the time. And not only did we put our hands on each of these voicing types, ascending and descending through the chords of the key of C major, we then applied these essential voicings to 2 of the most common chord progressions found in jazz, the 2-5-1 progression and the 3-6-2-5-1 progression. Now, for those of you who have tackled the workout, you know that it's not an easy workout. It's not easy to play the shapes and sounds of a key within a musical context. Once you determine a tempo, time, and a groove style, then it becomes immediately apparent as to what kind of command you have of the voicings. As I like to say, all skills sound really, really easy until, of course, you have to actually play them. Right? And also on January 4th, I announced that we will, throughout the 2022 year, we will be exploring all 12 keys using the same harmonic workout. In other words, we established a 2022 goal of becoming intimately familiar with the keys of music harmonically using the 4 voicing types: blocks, traditional shells, contemporary shells, and the two-handed 5-note structures. So today, we tackle a new key, the key of F major. But we do so with an added twist. Yes, as we move through the various keys throughout the year, we will be ratcheting up the intensity each and every time. Now, I know some of you thought it was just going to be the same thing. Every harmonic workout was going to be the same thing. And in one way, yes, it is. We're using the same voicings, but there's always going to be a new twist. There's always going to be something we're adding to the formula here, to the process, to the workout, right? So as we move through the various keys throughout the year, we will indeed be ratcheting it up, the intensity each and every time. So you may be asking, how so? Well, that's a great question. As we move through the various keys, we will be tweaking our explorations in a couple of different ways. Number one, we will always be challenging ourselves with various grooves, new grooves, which of course requires us to experience some different tempos as well. And number two, we will, from today forward, we will be adding a rhythmic dimension to our playing of the voicings. In other words, we have to learn how to accompany ourselves and others when playing. Or as jazzers like to say, we have to develop our comping skills. So the educational agenda for today is as follows. Number one, we are going to begin our key of F major harmonic workout for the month of February. Number two, we are going to play essential harmonic shapes that you need to discover, learn, and play. The block shapes, the traditional shells, the contemporary shells, and two-handed voicings. Number three, we're going to utilize a standard bossa nova groove with a tempo of 110. And number four, we are going to explore 12 simple, fundamental comping rhythms using whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes only. Right? In total, I'm going to introduce you to 12 rhythmic comping patterns that you can and you should use to help you gain a harmonic mastery of the key of F major. And number 5, we are going to apply our rhythmic comping patterns to the classic 2-5-1 progression. If you are a JazzPianoSkills member, I want you to take a few minutes right now, hit the pause button. I want you to take a few minutes to download and print the podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs. Right? You have access to these educational tools because of your membership, right? Your membership grants you access to all of the podcast packets. And as I mention every week, you should absolutely be using these podcast packets when listening to this episode and, of course, when practicing. So if you're listening to this podcast on any of the popular podcast directories such as Apple or Google, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, so on and so on and so on, then be sure to go to JazzPianoSkillsPodcast.com. Go directly to the podcast site, JazzPianoSkillsPodcast.com, to download the podcast packets. You will find the download links, the active links, within the show notes. And one final but extremely important note, I mention every week that if you are thinking that the key of F major harmonic workout and the various scales that we are about to discover, learn, and play, if you think they are over your head, then I would say to you, okay, no big deal, right? Please continue to listen, continue to grow your jazz piano skills intellectually by listening to this podcast episode. Every new skill is technically over our heads when first introduced, but this is how we get better, by placing ourselves in the middle of conversations where we are forced to grow intellectually. I say it all the time. In fact, so much so that many of you have told me I need to get a t-shirt with this comment printed on it, that all musical growth begins upstairs mentally before it can come out downstairs physically in your hands. So listen to this podcast lesson now to discover and learn. The play will come in time. And who knows, you might even win a free t-shirt. Okay, key of F major. All right, the very first thing I want to address is the very last page of your lead sheets packet. It's labeled Exercise 17. And the title of the page is Comping Rhythms. You will notice that there are 12 rhythmic patterns labeled letter A through letter L. You also notice that these rhythmic patterns use, as I mentioned earlier, use only whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes. Now trust me, the rhythmic patterns will become much more involved as the year progresses, I promise you. But for now, to get started, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes. Now, with that being said, if you cannot play these rhythms with just the whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes, you will find the patterns we tackle in the future, with our future harmonic workouts, you will find those patterns to be very, very difficult. So, be sure to legitimately devote study and practice time to these rhythmic patterns. You will also notice that each of these rhythmic patterns is to be played with the 2-5-1 progression, which is exactly what we are going to do today. Now, that does not mean that you should bypass practicing each of the 4 voicing types as outlined in exercises 1 through 16, because that should be that's your starting point, right? That's the very first thing you should do. Practice playing them, all of these voicing types and the chords of the key of F major. Practice playing them without rhythms, as I modeled for you last month in the key of C major harmonic workout. That podcast episode was on January 4th. Now, be sure to use the play-alongs that are included in your podcast packets. This will help a ton. Obviously, I do not have enough time to play through all 16 exercises and the 12 rhythmic patterns. So I'm going to trust that you do not get the cart ahead of the horse, that you're going to practice exercises 1 through 16 to make sure you have a handle on each of the 4 voicing types as applied to the chords found in the key of F major 7, G minor 7, A minor 7, B flat major 7, C dominant 7, D minor 7, and E half diminished. Then turn your attention to developing your comping skills using the voicings as you play the 2-5-1 progression in the key of F major, G minor 7 to C dominant 7 to F major 7. Okay, let's dig in. Rhythmic pattern A. We have 4 measures. So each pattern, A through L, is going to have the 2 chord for 1 measure, the 5 chord for 1 measure, and then the 1 chord for 2 measures. With pattern A, you'll see there, it starts off with the 2 chord, a whole note. And with our 5 chord, we have quarter notes on counts 1 and 3, followed by a whole note with our 1 chord in measure 3. Then you can chill out for measure 4, lick your wounds, and start over again and play the pattern again, right? So here's how I'm going to model them for you today. We're going to go through this pattern A here, and I'm going to do this for each of the patterns. I'm going to play each voicing type one time through. So first time through, I'm going to play the 2-5-1 using that rhythmic, that comping pattern, using my blocks. Then I'm going to use my traditional shells. Now there's 2 sets of traditional shells, right? Starting with 3-7-9, going to 7-3-5 to 3-7-9, and then I'll do it the other way, right? We have 2 options as outlined in our packets, in our workout packets. As I have 2 options with my contemporary shells, and I have 2 options with my 2-handed voicings. So I'm going to be playing through each of those options just one time through the 2-5-1 progression. So as you follow, you can kind of listen and know I'm moving from my blocks to both of my traditional shell options, to both of my contemporary shell options, and then both of my 2-handed voicing options. All right, so let's bring the ensemble in. I think after you hear it the first time for pattern A, exercise A here, rhythmic line A, I think you'll understand, you'll get it. And then we're going to follow the same process for the remaining comping rhythms B through L. So here we go. Let's bring the ensemble in. Let's check it out, and then we'll go from there. Here we go. Very nice. Now, a couple things. With the blocks I'm going to be playing, starting with the minor chord in root position, which will then take me to the dominant chord in second inversion, resolving to the major or the 1 chord in root position. Don't have time to go through all of those, but you should isolate not just your blocks and do practice each of the options as outlined in the packet, but you should isolate as well for all of these other voicing types, the traditional shells, the contemporary shells, and the 2-handed voicings. Again, I'm just modeling through each voicing type really as quickly as possible today, just to give you the idea of how you should be practicing these. Now, pattern B. Again, 2-5-1. We start with a whole note on our 2 chord. Our 5 chord, we have quarter notes on counts 3 and 4, followed by our whole note again on count 1, with a entire measure of rest in count 4. So once again, I'm going to go through each of my voicing types one time through, using a nice bossa nova groove at 110. So let's bring the ensemble in, let's check it out and see what we think. Here we go. Love it. See what I mean? As soon as you start putting your voicings into a musical context and a musical setting, and applying rhythm to them, you find out really quick, how well you have a command of the voicing types. So don't be afraid to isolate these 2-5-1 progressions, these 2-5-1 rhythms, isolate a specific voicing type that you may be focusing on, and repeat it over and over and over again. In doing so, not only are you learning your voicings, right, and gaining a command of them, but you're actually learning how to track time, how to keep track of time. Count 1, count 2, count 3, count 4. You internalize that. You start to feel that, and you know where you are within each measure. So huge. So now let's look at comping rhythm pattern letter C. Half note on our 2 chord on counts 1 and 2, and then followed by a quarter note on count 4. And then we repeat that same pattern, that same idea with our 5 chord. Half note on counts 1 and 2, measure a rest on count 3, quarter note on count 4, followed by a whole note on measure 3 with the 1 chord. Nice little comping pattern. This will feel good. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's do this. Again, all 4 voicing types one time through. Check it out. Here we go. Great practice. And again, do not underestimate the value of doing these exercises. Don't blow over these thinking that they're too simple, because they are not. There's so many fundamental skills being developed when practicing this way that you're not going to do yourself a favor by skipping over them, thinking that they're too easy for you. Because quite honestly, most of the time when students are feeling like it's too easy, when I ask them to go let's play these rhythms, they fold. They fail miserably. So do not make that mistake. Spend time with these patterns. All right, take a look at comping rhythm pattern letter D. Love it. 2 quarter notes, counts 1 and 2 for our 2 chord, followed by 2 beats of rest. Our 5 chord, we have quarter notes on counts 1 and 4, followed by a whole note on our 1 chord in measure 3. And again, a whole rest on measure 4 to give us a little breathing room before we start the process over again. So bring the ensemble in. Let's do this. Letter D. Here we go. You know, here's something. This is so true. When you're playing bossa nova, and most time pianists overplay when playing bossa nova style. So what's ironic about that with these simple rhythmic patterns, they're actually pretty much how you should be comping when you're playing bossa nova to begin with. So with that being said, let's take a look at letter E. We're going to flip our quarter notes now. We got on counts, we have rest on counts 1 and 3 of our first measure with our 2 chord, and we have our quarter notes on counts 2 and 4, followed by a half note on our 5 chord with 2 counts of rest on 3, 4, followed by a whole note again on our 1 chord for our resolution to the 1 chord. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's listen to this nice little bossa nova comping pattern. So here we go. Check it out. Love it. It's fantastic. It's very bossa nova-ish. So now on to pattern F. We have a rest on count 1, quarter note on count 2 for our 2 chord. On our 5 chord, we have a rest on count 1 again, followed by quarter notes on counts 2 and 3, followed by a quarter rest on count 4, resolving to our whole note on our 1 chord. This is a nice little rhythmic idea and rhythmic pattern as well. So let's bring our ensemble in. Let's check this out and see what it sounds like. Here we go. that easy, right? As soon as our quarter notes start landing on beats other than count 1, you have to have a pretty good internal sense of where you are within the measure to pull these rhythmic ideas off, to make them sound nice and relaxed. And this is what I'm getting at. These simple whole note, half note, quarter note comping rhythms will help you literally develop your sense of time, your ability to track time as you play. So now let's take a look at comping rhythm G. And here we go, right? We're not coming in until count 4 of this measure with a quarter note with our 2 chord. Not till count 4. Followed by a half note on our 5 chord in measure 2 with a quarter rest on measure 3, quarter note on measure 4, resolving to our whole note again with our 1 chord. Again, you have to be able to get comfy and be able to track time to pull this pattern off naturally. So here we go. Let's check it out and see what we think. See, I'm not telling you the truth, right? Not easy. Looks easy on the page, right? Wait till you start playing them. Not so easy. So now let's draw our attention to comping rhythm letter H. We have quarter notes on counts 1 and 2, followed by a quarter rest, followed by another quarter note on count 4. Check out what's happening on that 5 chord. Rest on counts 1, 2, and 3. We don't play anything till count 4, and we have a quarter note, which is going to resolve into our whole note with our 1 chord, right? Again, your ability to track time. So let's bring the ensemble back in. Let's check it out. Here we go with comping rhythm letter H. Let's see what you think. Here we go. Love it. And again, just a reminder, right? I'm playing each of these voicing types one time through. My blocks, my 2 traditional shell options, my 2 contemporary shell options, and my 2 two-handed voicing options. So now let's look at comping rhythm letter I. Our 2 chord begins with a half note, followed by a quarter rest, followed by a quarter note. Then we have 2 beats of silence on our 5 chord, counts 1 and 2, followed by a single quarter note on count 3, followed by a quarter rest on count 4. Yeah, right? You got to be able to track time and lay down that 5 chord on count 3. Then it resolves to our whole note on count 1 for a resolution to the 1 chord. So here we go, right? Comping rhythm pattern, letter I. Let's check it out. Very nice. Love it. Well, we only have 3 more to look at, so let's keep rolling along here. Look at comping rhythmic pattern, letter J. Our 2 chord begins with a quarter rest. Quarter note on count 2, followed by rest on 3 and 4. Our 5 chord begins with a quarter note on count 1, followed by rest on counts 2 and 3, and then you come in again on count 4 with a quarter note, resolving to a whole note on our 1 chord. Very nice. A nice, simple bossa style comping pattern. So let's bring the ensemble back in. Let's check out comping rhythm, letter J. Here we go. Very nice. Now, check out comping rhythm letter K. I love this because letter K, I've intentionally placed all the action is taking place on counts 2 and 4. So on our 2 chord, quarter rest on count 1, followed by quarter note on count 2, followed by quarter rest on count 3, followed by a quarter note on count 4. We do the exact same thing with our 5 chord in measure 2. Then it resolves to our whole note for measure 3 and our 1 chord. This is a fun little rhythm. Again, your ability to track time, to know where you are. And the tendency is you're going to want to land on count 1. And there's just simply nothing happening on count 1 till measure 3. So here we go. Let's check it out. Let's have a little fun with this. Comping rhythm, letter K. Here we go. Very nice. Now, our last rhythm for today, comping rhythm letter L. I like this one too because kind of have the polar opposite happening here in measures 1 and 2. We start off with our 2 chord with a half note, followed by a quarter rest, followed by a quarter note on count 4. We reverse that process with our 5 chord. Quarter note on count 1, followed by a quarter rest on count 2, followed by a half note on counts 3 and 4, resolving to our 1 chord with our whole note. Nice little bossa rhythm. So for our last rhythm today, let's bring our ensemble in. Let's check it out and see what we think. Here we go. Very nice. Well, we've done it again, right? We have unpacked an amazing amount of information in one very short and one very fast hour. Do not, and again I want to say it, do not underestimate the importance of being able to play these simple rhythmic comping patterns that use only whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes. The importance of playing these simple rhythmic comping patterns in time using correct jazz voicings, our 4 voicing types. So you need to be honest with yourself. If you are unable to play fundamental comping patterns using whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, and various combinations of the 3, then you have no business trying to tackle more challenging rhythms that include 8th notes, dotted 8th notes, 16th notes, syncopation, so on. And in fact, the rhythmic patterns we use today while playing our 4 voicing types, our blocks, our traditional shells, contemporary shells, and 2-handed voicings, right? These rhythmic patterns allow you to develop your ability, as I mentioned earlier, your ability to track and to feel time. So often when students struggle with playing jazz, it's because of their inability to successfully track time. In other words, being able to always know where count 1 is, to know where count 2 is, where count 3 is, count 4, and to do so and not guess, right? You can't guess because the reality is this. You have a greater chance of winning the lottery, being struck by lightning, or leaping tall buildings in a single bound than you do at correctly guessing time when trying to play jazz. Let that sink in and embrace the importance of the simple, and I'm using air quotes here when I say simple, right? The importance of the simple whole, half, and quarter rhythmic comping patterns that we use today when doing our key of F major harmonic workout. Next week, we jump into a key of F major melodic workout, and of course, I will introduce some new twist for that workout as well. So hang in there with me this year. You are going to experience a ton of jazz piano growth. You will love where you are musically a year from now. You'll feel the difference, and most importantly, you'll hear the difference. Once again, I want to encourage all of the Jazz Piano Skills members listening to use the podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs to guide you as you study and practice. These are educational tools that will help you gain a mastery of the jazz piano skills conceptually, physically, and musically, right? So use the podcast packets. And as always, I want you to be patient, especially with today's lesson. Developing mature professional jazz piano skills takes time. So begin structuring your practicing, right, after the playing demonstrations that I modeled for you in this podcast episode. And you will begin to feel and hear your progress. I guarantee it. Well, I hope you have found this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring key of F major harmonic workout to be insightful and, of course, to be very beneficial. And don't forget, if you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I will see you online Thursday evening at the Jazz Piano Skills Masterclass, 8 p.m. Central Time, to discuss this podcast episode, this lesson, exploring a key of F major harmonic workout in greater detail, and of course, to answer any questions that you may have about the study of jazz in general. Be sure to use the educational podcast packets again, the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs. Also, be sure to tap into the Jazz Piano Skills courses to maximize your musical growth. Also, make sure that you are an active participant in the Jazz Piano Skills community. Get out there, get involved, ask some questions, contribute to the various forums, and most importantly, make some new jazz piano friends. As always, you can reach me by phone, 972-380-8050. My office extension is 211. By email, Dr. Lawrence, that's drlawrence @jazzpianoskills.com, or by SpeakPipe, found throughout the Jazz Piano Skills website. Well, there it is. There's my cue. That's it for now. And until next week, enjoy the key of F major harmonic workout. Enjoy those comping rhythmic patterns. And most of all, have fun as you discover, learn, and play jazz piano.